Hey Merfolk fans, I'm Joe. Thanks very much for joining me today. If you'd like to support my channel and all these videos I upload, please take a moment and check out the link above to my Patreon page. I'll also put the link down below in the description. I'm here with a replay of kind of a bonus match. It's one of the more fun ones that I've played in the last few weeks. Opponent won the die roll. This is a mulligan. That's a mulligan. And this is a keep, and it's a funny keep because, or I guess I should say a useful keep, because it lets me discuss the build that I was running. So I wanted to try running some of these Unsettled Mariners. I kind of hate that it's a shapeshifter. I mean, yes, it does mean that it's a Merfolk, but it's also a human, it's also a spirit, and the fact that every deck can take advantage of it just makes it less appealing to me. It does pitch to Force of Negation, it is a blue card. So I had stayed away from testing it for a while, but I think it was like a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. I did, jam it for like maybe 10 to 20 different matches. The way that I restructured the mana base to accommodate the white mana was I just ran 4 Caverns and 4 Wanderwine hubs. And I changed Deprives in the sideboard to Mana Leaks since we can't really support all the double blue that Deprive requires. So I definitely kept this hand. I didn't know who my opponent was, so I chose to trim the hand down like this. So I've got 1 land, Ether Vial, 2 creatures, and a Force of Negation. All right, so it's burn. Now, since I was just starting to test Unsettled Mariner, I didn't really know how good or bad he was in this matchup. Goblin Guide, right off the bat, gives me a Wanderwine Hub, which is excellent. I go down to 18 and draw Benthic Biomancer, which is quite good because it's going to curve beautifully with Ether Vial. Pass back to the opponent. They play Swift Spear, so it's one of those creature openings. Lava Spike gonna trigger Prowess, so they're getting in for tons of damage right off the bat. 15 plus 4 more. I'm already down to 11 on turn 2. Goblin Guide reveals Mutavault. So he's already given me 2 cards. That's quite nice. And now we can start to get our game plan going. Ether Vial will go to 1 counter. Going to run out Unsettled Mariner here. It's going to tax the opponent's spells. And we've got Benthic Biomancer in reserve in case, we need to flash him in for blocks or something. Opponent goes for Lava Spike, and that is immediately going to trigger Unsettled Mariner, which says, if you want this to resolve, you have to pay 1 more mana. The opponent had to think about it, and of course, they pay 1 more mana. But keeping burn on 1 spell a turn instead of 2 spurns is pretty huge. So it only triggers Monastery Swift Spear once. And I'm going to counter that 1 spell by pitching Benthic Biomancer, because the Lord is going to get Mutavault's toughness and Unsettled Mariner's toughness up to a nice point where we can start favorably blocking some of these creatures. So we see a Spreading Seas, which is kind of cool because it is going to further sort of constrain their mana. We go down to 7. I have to take that hit for now. Ether Vial is going to go up to 2. We'll get to play this Mutavault. And there's that Spreading Seas that we saw. So just play out the Ether Vial, which will hopefully free up my mana a little bit more. And we're going to leave Mutavault back, leave Unsettled Mariner back as blockers. All right, opponent going straight to combat, getting in with both creatures, representing that they have a spell for Monastery Swift Spear. We drew another land off Goblin Guide. Sometimes things just line up really well with that card. And at this point, I'm going to activate Mutavault and line up blocks. So I think we can afford to just go for the trade on Goblin Guide, see if the opponent has any response. Then try to Vial in Lord of Atlantis, see if the opponent has removal for the Lord. They do not, and so we just get to eat the Goblin Guide, and things are starting to look pretty good on our side of the table. Pretty much always, just because of the way that burn works, your life total is going to get really low really fast. You have to not freak out and just protect the last few points of damage the best that you can. Ether Vials take up, unfortunately drawing lands. Go ahead and hit one of those mountains with Spreading Seas, and we keep drawing lands, but things are starting to look better on our side. We can finally swing in for some damage. Opponent goes down to 15. They play a Goblin Guide. They don't get taxed for that. And they probably don't have good attacks, so that Spreading Sea's coming in handy. I guess if they played a spell, they probably would have gotten countered anyway, although Swift Spear would have gotten buffed. Still no good attacks, though. So people discuss a lot, on the Discord about Fairy Conclave and its usefulness for finishing off Planeswalkers against Jund, things like that. But Fairy Conclave is more often than not a pretty poor blocker. You can see Mutavault is quite a strong blocker in this situation against Burn. So we just need to draw more creatures to be able to sort of turn this in our direction. And Ben is a great start because we have plenty of lands to be able to loot away. I played Oboro just because it can always come back to our hand. All right, so things are turning around. We're going to activate Mutavault and just start cracking in. That was a great series of draws off Benthic Biomancer, rip this Lord. No reason not to run it out now. Opponent goes down to 4, and then they just scooped. So Unsettled Mariner, definitely very, very good against Burn. They have to pay 1 extra mana for each of their spells, and you guys know that Burn sort of thrives on the sort of maximum efficiency of all of their 1-drop spells. They run precious few 2-drop spells, which with Unsettled Mariner on the battlefield become 3-drop spells, like Boros Charm. So pretty cool game 1. We're able to sort of stem the burn damage and then ultimately just sort of develop a huge board and win. Let's go ahead and see how game 2 went against Burn with Unsettled Mariner. Okay, back for game 2. Not quite sure what's in my sideboard, but you guys know I typically bring in counter spells against Burn. Gonna take out Benthic Biomancer probably just because it's pretty slow. I guess we can take a quick look, see what the sideboard looked like. So we took out a Benthic Biomancer, took out a couple Reges. They're just sort of very weak to Searing Blazes, things like that. And I would have just brought in my Deprives, probably. Unfortunately, a mulligan, but we can keep this. And since we need colored mana, I believe the Mutavault has to go to the bottom of the deck. Okay, Suspended Riftbolt off of an Inspiring Vantage. Unsettled Mariner is an amazing top deck there. That's the card that, while testing this particular build, I wanted to see the most. Riftbolt, and then Light Up the Stage. Revealed, I guess, an Inspiring Vantage and a Sacred Foundry. So basically just drawing 2 cards there. Pretty nice. Opponent hits me with a Lava Spike, and we are definitely going to run out this Mariner as quickly as possible. Swing for 1 with Benthic Biomancer. Opponent goes to 19 and untaps. Okay, interesting that they chose to play a Mountain there rather than the Sacred Foundry, which they had for free off of the Light Up the Stage. So Swift Spear and then Lightning Bolt targeting Unsettled Mariner. So you can see how great this card is in the Burn matchup. It's so good that it forces them to spend their Burn getting rid of him. So unfortunately, Mariner bites the dust. The opponent pays the tax. Swift Spear goes to a 2/3, and the Mariner goes to the graveyard. But that was 1 Lightning Bolt that didn't hit my face. So I guess good job, Mariner. Drawing the heat away. And we have another one to replace his deceased brother. Benthic Biomancer going to attack. Opponent goes to 18. They're only on 1 card. Up to 2 after their draw step. And yeah, I'm definitely not going to block here. Opponent has Boros Charm. They have to pay 1 extra for that. That's sort of fine. I go down to 8, go down to 6. Opponent still just has 1 card in hand. They did not play a land that turn, which means that they probably have some gas. Drew a Tidebinder Mage, which is pretty sweet. Go ahead and lock down that Swift Spear. Freeze our creatures up to get into the red zone. Opponent goes down to 15, untaps, draws a card, plays a Goblin Guide. And I imagine whatever the Goblin Guide reveals is going to significantly impact my decision on blocks here. Okay, well, they drew me an island. I guess that I could trade, but then it just unlocks the Swift Spear. So chose to take 4 damage. The opponent cannot have both Boros Charm and a land to pay the tax. So life total safe for the time being. Force is pretty nice here. They've got the Goblin Guide here available. Sorry, Goblin Guide can still attack. Swift Spear is still locked up by the Tidebinder Mage. I believe for this build, I had a couple Tidebinder Mages in the board. I felt like I could afford to play one of the many lords in hand to start really pushing some damage since I had the free counterspell in hand. With Mariner taxing the opponent, I felt that I could pass the turn with only one counterspell up. If I didn't play the Lord, I could both free cast Force of Negation and hard cast Monoleak. But they only have one card in hand, and yeah, this seemed like the best line. Opponent takes 5. They go for the Boros Charm. They have to pay the tax. So they pay the tax. Swift Spear gets a prowess trigger, and yeah, we get to counter this thing. Pretty awesome how Mariner forces them to tap out. If they had another Lightning Bolt or something, they could have cast it this turn, but still at 4 life. Pretty comfortable. Opponent chooses not to attack. Probably wise. Regery, a good draw, but we probably are priced into leaving up Monoleak here. All right, get in with a couple of our creatures. 2-turn clock. Opponent takes it, untaps, and just scoops. If they had another Boros Charm, they would have had to pay 3 mana for it, and I would have had the Monoleak up. So hopefully an interesting demonstration of how Unsettled Mariner plays in Modern Merfolk. As I mentioned, I played somewhere between probably 10 and 20 matches with the card. Ultimately, it didn't impress me enough to justify the disruption of the mana base with all these Cavern of Souls. You could choose not to run Cavern of Souls and just run a bunch of fetch lands, but then you're hitting your life total really hard. And I've just never really loved that. I love the simplicity of mono blue Merfolk's mana base, and Unsettled Mariner just wasn't really worth it. So it was a lot of fun in my testing, but I've since reverted back to just good old mono blue. As you saw in this league playlist, I'm on like a 7 Cs build right now with Thassa, and it's a blast. So pretty fun match against Burn with Unsettled Mariner. Quick 2-0 for the Merfolk. And yeah, please leave your thoughts down below in the comments section. Have you guys tested Unsettled Mariner? Did you find it impressive? Have you played against it? What do you think of the card in general? Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already. And please check out my Patreon page if you'd like to support all of my videos. Thanks very much for tuning in, and I'll be back soon with some more gameplay. I'll see you guys there. Bye.